to the show.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. It's me, Stante. I keep saying that. You guys know this, but I'm going to say it anyway, every time. So this week's guest is newly knighted.
Newly minted, you could say.
Newly minted. Brand new black belt. What, like within the month? Within the last month?
Almost exactly a month. It was July 13th I got promoted, I think.
Okay, so right around a little over a month. So
yeah,
fresh new black belt.
Yeah, it feels good.
Mr. James McClughen.
Thanks for having me.
No problem, my friend. Thank you for doing this. I always appreciate everyone giving their time to me and you know, just coming on and conversing. So thank you very much for this.
It's an honor.
So before we started recording, James and I, we got into some deep conversation. We're going to revisit that. I found his bag, and you know, you could feel the passion through the monitor. So, but before we even get into DragonBall Z, what we're going to do is I want to know basically your jiu-jitsu journey. I want to know, you know, I did some Instagram, you know, stalking a little bit,
right.
Just kind of scrolling through. I always feel awkward when I do that because as I scroll through, I'll see something, I'll like it. And this from like years ago, I'm like, Jesus, I think I'm a weirdo.
Yeah,
but
it's all good though with your, you know, you do a podcast, so it's like kind of makes sense. You meet someone, you go through their page, you know.
Yeah, I mean, from the outside it seems that way, but when I'm doing it, I'm like, I feel crazy.
Right. Yeah, I feel it.
So for you and starting jiu-jitsu, what got you into it?
Yeah, so I started grappling when I was about 9 with wrestling. I moved to live with my dad when I was 9, and my next door neighbors, Dawn and George, wonderful couple. They had 2 sons, George and Zach, who both wrestled. And they were just like, hey, you should come try out wrestling. And I was like, all right, I've never wrestled before. I had met one kid when I was younger who wrestled, but I had just seen his pictures and trophies, and I had never really known much about it. So I went with Zach to a freestyle club. This is in like fourth, 5th grade, something like that. And I did it. I wrestled with this kid named Chris Oakes, who was a stud. He was like a year younger than me, 15 pounds lighter than me, and he pinned me like 8 times in like a 6-minute match. And I was like, what is going on here? So kind of like most people's experience with jiu-jitsu, right? You roll the first time, some person half your size murders you, and then you're like, okay, I need to learn how to do this. So I kind of had that with wrestling. So I wrestled and I loved it. So then I wrestled all through high school. And then when I was in high school, just kind of growing up, I was like a big, I was into WWE. I liked martial arts movies. I used to watch Bruce Lee and Jet Li movies and all this stuff. And I was flipping through TV one day, and I landed on Spike TV, which was then not even a thing anymore. But Spike TV at the time, and one of the UFCs was on. And I was like, oh, what is this? It was like, people fighting. But I was like, I'm not familiar with this. I was like maybe 14 or 15 at the time. And it's James Irvin, and he's fighting, I believe the dude is Terry Martin. And totally different styles. Terry Martin's a wrestler. James Irvin was a knockout striker. His nickname was the Sandman, if people don't remember James Irvin. So I'm watching this. I'm like, what is this? First round, Terry Martin took James Irvin down repeatedly. And I was like, all right, the wrestler's kicking the striker's ass. That's kind of what I expected. And then beginning of the second round, James Irvin Masvidal's Terry Martin. He runs across the cage and literally flying knee KOs him. And I was like, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen. And so just from then on, I was hooked on the UFC. And then as I learned about the UFC, I discovered what Jujutsu was, and then, Hoist Gracie, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. I need to learn this. So then as I was getting older and getting out of high school, I'd sort of started messing with MMA like as I was in high school, and I was like, man, maybe this is something I could look into, because I was a pretty good wrestler. I wasn't like a state champion or nothing, but I was good. I won more than I lost, and I was like, maybe this is something I can look into, because there's not really much else in terms of wrestling. So as I was getting older, I sort of started messing with MMA. But then when I was in my senior year of high school, I joined the Army. While I was waiting to join the Army, I did an amateur MMA fight. So I had basically picked up like Jiu-Jitsu just from watching the UFC. I had like wrestled with some friends. Like we would have fight nights at a buddy's house, and we would all like in between fights, we would just like practice the moves on each other and like have little sparring matches. I remember this one time I had a little match with this dude named Clinton. He was like 2 years older than me. He was on the wrestling team with me, so I knew he was good, and I was like, this isn't gonna be fun. But he was like, let's go McClughen, and I was like, all right, let's go. So the entire time we were like, he was mostly using wrestling on me, but he was like dragging my face across the carpet and just trying to like make it miserable, and he was just trying to get me to quit. But the next fight ended up coming on, and we basically just kind of called it a draw. And the whole, like, I went to school the next day and my whole face was like covered in rug burn, and everyone was like, what happened? And I was like, oh, me and Clinton were just messing around at Seymour's house. And so I loved it. And I was like a natural at it, like I'm the type of guy, I can see a technique just like in a video. I watch it once, twice, 2 times, and like I can get like 80% of it. I might miss a few details, but it's like I'll get the basics. So I figured out how to do arm bars, triangles, kimuras, all that just from like watching like UFC basically. So then went to basic training, AIT after high school. I had my amateur MMA fight, won that. That was crazy. I fought this dude named Jake Warner, who I'm still friends with to this day. He was much older than me. He was 32 years old at the time. I was 18, and we fought at 155 pounds for extreme cage fighting. The video is out there somewhere. It's on my Facebook still, if you found it somewhere. It's in super grainy because it was taken in like 2009 on somebody's shitty camcorder. My buddy Caleb recorded it. My buddy Caleb just approached me and he was like, hey, you want to do this amateur MMA fight? And I was like, okay. So I did it. And anyway, I said all that. I ended up winning that amateur MMA fight. And I was like, hey, I might actually be pretty good at this. But then I had like the Army. So I was doing that and then went to basic training, AIT. And I was in the Army Reserves. So when I got out of basic and AIT, I was then qualified to use my GI Bill. So I used my GI Bill and I went to college at Indiana University. So when I got to Indiana University, that's where I really started doing jiu-jitsu. They had a jiu-jitsu club that was only $50 for the whole semester. And I was like, that's awesome. Because back then in like 2008, 2009 in Indiana, there was like maybe 2 or 3 places where you could train jiu-jitsu, and the closest one was like an hour and 20 minutes from where I lived. So just didn't really get to train, right? So when I got to college, I had an actual opportunity to do like real jiu-jitsu. And so I signed up, I went to club, and Josh Hinger, I don't know if you know who he is. He's an Atos Black Belt. He was there doing his master's degree at the time. He was a brown belt, and he was instructing in the club. And so was this black belt who was also affiliated with Atos. He's I think Small Axe is his name, Tim Sled. They were like the first like legit black and brown belts that I ever rolled with. I got submitted like who knows how many times. Tim submitted me with the exact same straight arm bar from like 9 different positions, and he told me he was going to do it. And I was like, man, I was like, I really need to learn this stuff. So I did that club the whole time I was in college, but they didn't really promote people in the club because it wasn't like part of an actual gym. So like I was just this white belt who trained whenever I could for like 4 years, and I never got promoted. After I finished ROTC, I commissioned active duty as an infantry officer in the Army. I went to IBOLC, did all that stuff, and then I moved to El Paso when I got stationed out there at Fort Bliss. And then I trained at an MMA gym for about 1.5 years out there, Bushido MMA. Shout out to Hugo Sita. He was the head coach out there. He is a black belt under, what is that guy's name? One of his fighters just won the Ultimate Fighter, Carly Miller, the female.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Hurricane. He's a Hurricane black belt. I can't remember his name. It's blanking me right now. But Hugo was my MMA coach because I still had thoughts about doing MMA. I trained there for a while, but then while I was in the military, I got sent over to Kuwait while I was over there. My roommate, he was a captain that I was just in like a bunk room with. He was a purple belt in Jiu-Jitsu, so we got talking about Jiu-Jitsu, and we were like, man, it'd be great if there was somewhere to train over here. So we set up we found this huge open tent that was just filled with wrestling mats. So we were like, whose are these? And they were like, oh yeah, those are here, but no one ever uses them. So we were like, can we get the keys? So we got the keys on, this is a Camp Buring in Kuwait. We got the keys to this huge mat room that no one ever used. The AC broke every day. And I don't know if you know much about Kuwait, but in the summer, it's 127 degrees every day. And so we were basically training in a sauna every day, but it was just me and him most of the time. But eventually, over the 9 months that we were there, we got word out to people like, hey, we've been doing some jiu-jitsu. If you guys want to come on your time off, we'll teach you guys some stuff. And through doing that, Nick Smith, he was the purple belt. Shout out Nick Smith, aka Smith. I love that guy. I miss him. He's nothing happened to him, by the way. I just haven't seen him in a while. Want to make that clear. Whenever you're talking about people in the military, you got to specify, But he was a purple belt, and I was still technically a white belt at the time. And I would like give him hard rolls, and he was like, dude, how are you a white belt? And I was like, dude, I've been training for forever. I did MMA. I was never at a place consistently enough to get promoted. And he was like, well, I'm going to talk to my professor, and I'm going to see if I can promote you. So he actually got permission from his professor to promote me to blue belt while I was in Kuwait. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm one of the few people who can say I got my blue belt in Kuwait. After I got home from Kuwait, I went back and I started training at that same gym. And so I basically went from blue through brown belt at that same gym in El Paso, Texas. It was Gracie Jiu-Jitsu El Paso. It doesn't exist anymore. It's now Grind Jiu-Jitsu in El Paso. But Professor Justin Gonzalez, Big Gonzo 21 on Instagram, he was my professor out there. Great guy. He has a really good top pressure game, fundamentals, strong triangles. Like my game is very much like his game because I trained with him, blue belt through brown belt, and he's a great guy. And so I trained that whole time while I was in the Army, and I just kept training all along the way. Got promoted to brown belt, and then I got out of the military in 2018 due to some injuries. So we'll get into that at some point, but I've torn my ACL 3 times, none of them from jiu-jitsu. It was all military related stuff. So all along this journey that I just told you about jiu-jitsu, I tore my ACL at 3 different points along that, and recuperated, kept training. While I was in Kuwait, actually, I tore it, and I also tore my shoulder while I was in Kuwait. I was teaching a guy some jiu-jitsu, and he spiked me on my shoulder. I was like, what are you doing?
God damn.
Yeah, he separated my AC joint in my left shoulder. I had a grade 3 separation, and I had to get my shoulder basically sutured back together. So now when you look at me when I stand, I'm already crooked because I have scoliosis, but now I'm even more crooked. So that was fun. So I tore my shoulder, tore my knee a bunch of times, jacked up my back, and it was all just in stupid stuff in the military. It wasn't anything even combat related, which sucked. And so anyway, I got out of the military in 2018, and then after I got out of the military, I was still in El Paso, and the only reason I was really still there was because of my jiu-jitsu gym and because I had a girlfriend at the time. And then once me and my girlfriend broke up, I was like, well, there's not really any other reason for me to be here. So I moved from El Paso back to Illinois near Chicago, which is where I am now, and because my family and stuff lives around here. And I started training at BJJ Lab, which is where I train now. So I showed up to them as a brown belt. They welcomed me. It was amazing. The instructors were all amazing. My professor Mark is a 6-time national champion. He was one of the first people to get his black belt directly from Damian Maya. So Mark is incredible. All the professors at our academy are great. Brasileiro champions, world champions, whatever, we have it all. And so showing up there as a brown belt, especially a brown belt coming from a smaller town and a smaller gym, I was kind of I hope I don't show up and get wrecked. And to be honest, when I first showed up, it was close. I did well, but I was also like, okay, this is like a bigger time academy, and these guys are a little bit higher level. So I was like, I was hanging in there with the purple and brown belts, but like the black belts were all killing me. And then, but it was like, good. This is what I wanted, because I was like hoping to find a bigger gym with more people, higher quality training partners, all that. Yeah. So I just kept training, and then, slowly but surely over time, I built a stronger relationship at BJJ Lab, and then eventually Mark got the trust in me he promoted me to, well, he started letting me teach first back in about, wow, has it already been that many months? Around January of this year, Mark started letting me teach a few classes. So I started with teaching the morning classes, because our academy has grown so much over the last few years that people are like, hey, can we add more classes? Can we add more classes? So we added morning classes, we added noon classes, we added more evening classes. So I teach Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday now. And I started out just teaching Tuesday, Wednesday mornings, and he trusted me with that. He likes the way I teach. I'm very like analytical with my jiu-jitsu. I'm a big fan of like Gordon Ryan, John Danaher. I have like all of Danaher's DVDs. So I always try to explain like why technique works, and getting people to understand like the concept behind the move. And like, once you understand this, you can, like sweeps, for example, it's like, once you understand that if you just off balance somebody to a side that you've taken away their base on, that's pretty much how all sweeps work. And then you just got to figure out how to make them do that. Right. So he trusted me with teaching. So after teaching for a while, he decided it was time, and he promoted me to black belt, and I was super happy about that. And yeah.
No, that's a hell of a journey, dude. Like every time, I ask anyone, about, what got them started with jiu-jitsu, everyone's got a different story. Everybody's got a fascinating story, but it's like pretty much everyone's very similar. And, I showed up to a gym and then, just started training, or, they wrestled, not even necessarily wrestle, but it's like, wrestled around with my brothers, or, my cousins or something, and just took to it, just started. So you've had a fascinating journey though. So, and not just, just with the journey though, it's like you've gotten to see, like you said, you were over in Kuwait, just training, just, like, we got some downtime, and that's a different experience in itself. Like,
yeah, it was cool. I got lucky with that. Towards the end of that trip in Kuwait, there was actually a black belt who showed up. His name was Hanato Freitas, and he was a black belt from Hoist Gracie. And he showed up, and I was like, hey, we have this little club if you ever want to come. And so he actually started teaching classes for like the last month I was there. And I think he had kept it going after I left.
Stuff like that. I think, I don't know that people outside of the jiu-jitsu community get how important it is to us. But not just that, when you have something like what you all had in Kuwait, and you got a Gracie black belt, Hoist Gracie black belt come over, and you extend the invite. And most things, let's say basketball, football, just, I always say with jiu-jitsu, it's one of those sports where you can actually meet, a superstar in the game and train with them.
For sure.
And, whereas we're not, I'm not shooting basketball with LeBron anytime soon.
Yeah.
That's just not available to me.
Yeah.
But in this sport, in this community of ours, we have that opportunity, and just, you extend that invite, and, he shows up, I'm sure a big part of it is out of respect for what you all are doing, but also, again, it's that community thing about jiu-jitsu that we have. So that's pretty awesome, dude.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu is a small community, and then the Army is also a small community. So it's like when you have jiu-jitsu people within the Army, it's like you kind of magnetate. You know what the word I'm looking?
Gravitate.
You gravitate towards each other. Yeah, that's the word. And so, yeah, all these people who were into grappling, we just kind of found it. At one point, this little club that we had started in Kuwait had like 20 dudes that would show up. It was pretty cool. But yeah, it's great that there's something about jiu-jitsu that I think relates to the veteran community, because it's a combined, this is going to sound weird, but it's like a combined struggle where you and your training partners, you're basically pretending to wage war on each other in the pursuit of getting better at potentially waging war on others. So
makes perfect sense.
In jiu-jitsu, you're doing it with your hands. In the military, you're doing it with, guns and tanks and whatever. But it's like the goal is the same. You want to be like the best killer you can be, So I think a lot of veterans, when they get out of the military, they find themselves looking for something to fill that void. And that's why a lot of veterans flow right into jiu-jitsu, because it's hard. So it's like the military, and you struggle, you kind of get your ass kicked a little bit as you're learning how to do it. But then you also build this camaraderie with the people. Certain people will drift away and they'll fade out, but the ones who stay strong with, and you find someone who you go from white belt to black belt with, that's going to be your homie, because you've spent hours and hours on the mat, simulating murder on each other.
That's one thing I always say. Since having started jiu-jitsu, every time I meet my neighbor, he was in the Army as well. And once we got connected and started talking, my first thought was all right, I need to get this guy over to the gym. I need to get him on the mat. I always want to grapple with people I meet. Mm-hmm. It's not even a matter of dominance. It's a matter of I want to, you find out a lot about people when you're on the mat with them. Yeah, you find out their temperament, how they handle pressure. Mm-hmm. Just there are these little beats about people that you find out when you're grappling and putting them in an uncomfortable situation. Mm-hmm. Whether it be, the guy who's never touched a mat before in his life, doesn't know anything about grappling, he comes out there, he gets mounted and taps to the claustrophobia of just being under someone's mount. That's not necessarily to say, oh, they're weak, but that's something they'll that's something they know that they'll have to kind of grow out of or get comfortable with and come to understand. But now okay, put this person in that position so they can start understanding that it's not that bad, you're okay, there's a way out of this, stuff like that. I did get my neighbor actually to come over to the gym, and I mean, one thing that can be said about him is he's got good top pressure for someone who's never grappled before. Mm-hmm. He had really good top control, and it was I assumed oh, okay, you took part in combatives, tell me more, and it was not really. It's okay, but what you're saying though with the veteran community, and then you couple that with jiu-jitsu, that's one thing we tend to see out here at our gym as well. I think it's just kind of a natural connection for the two. So good.
Yeah, same thing with wrestling. People who they get out of wrestling, and whether it was college wrestling or just high school wrestling, it's they get done with wrestling and they miss it. And it's well, there's not really professional wrestling unless you're an Olympian. So what do? Yeah. Well, jiu-jitsu, it's like wrestling's neighbor, So
yeah, that's one thing I've said many times on here. Is one thing that scares me is a wrestler who's embraced jiu-jitsu and the comfort of working from your guard.
I mean, that's the whole thing, is as you go, you just got to start putting it all together. Everyone is you can't learn everything at once, right? So everyone, you start wherever you start. You walk into your first jiu-jitsu class, whatever they're teaching, the move of the day, that's the first thing you learn. And it's different for everyone. You might walk in when people are teaching arm bars. You might walk in when they're teaching the closed guard. You might walk in when they're teaching sweeps. And a lot of your style can really be based just off of what they happen to be teaching the day you walk in, or the style of your coaches, or when I lived in El Paso, a lot of the guys that I trained with were like small but quick little like Hispanic dudes. So I kind of developed like a smaller, more inverty, agile game, just rolling with all those savages, trying to keep up with those little monsters. So now I'm this 6'2", 180-pound guy who has like a good inversion guard retention type game, you know? So it's like, you know, you can benefit from that type of stuff if you're willing to learn. Like I sucked at playing guard when I first started. I was a wrestler. I like taking people down and smashing them. I did MMA. I had 4 MMA fights. I took people down and I smashed them. That was my style. And it's still my style in jiu-jitsu. I take people down and I smash them if I can. But now I have a guard. I didn't used to have a guard. But when I was a blue belt, I was like, you know what? I'm going to spend the next year learning how to play guard. So every time I rolled, I would, if I had the option, I would start on bottom. And I would recommend that to anyone who is training jiu-jitsu is like, don't just make your goal like to show up and get better. Like when you show up, be like, I want to get better at the flower sweep today. So when we get the chance to open roll, I'm going to attempt the flower sweep on everyone. And I might get it 0 times the first day I try it. But you do that over the course of a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And before you know it, you're sweeping everybody. And everyone's asking you, hey, man, how do you do that sweep?
Yeah, I actually just saw a post late last night that was essentially to, you know, what it's saying was it's not just showing up. You don't get better by just showing up. You know, and that's always the saying. It's like, you keep showing up, you'll get better. It's not completely true. Yeah, he was saying it was a myth. And, you know, what it is like you got to have, kind of a focused plan when you go in. And I think since COVID, that's been where I've just been showing up, and then this morning I was like, okay, can't just show up. Yeah. Come in with a plan. And I'm great at defending. I never attack unless it's something you like. If you fall into something for me, I'll go for it. Oh, Kimura, don't mind if I do. But like today, I was like, all right, I don't, I'm rolling with this newer guy. He's a wrestler, which he's fun. He's always moving. I love it. It's different because most guys, they kind of hunker down, work their position. This dude is just constantly moving. But he stumbled into my guard. I was like, okay, here we are. We got to do something. So, he's doing the typical white belt, putting his arm back to push my leg off. I was like, oh my God, you're saying just take the triangle. So I was like, all right, shoot. And he's a taller guy. So I, shot my hips up. I, got the diamond. Then he started standing up. And I was like, don't you dare stand me up in front of coach. Do not carry me. And then time was over. We laughed about it. Then we switched positions. I got his back. And again, I don't normally attack. And I was like, here's your chance. You need to start attacking. That's your goal for the next month and a half, 2 months. Come in and attack. Do not come in and survive. Come in and just try to attack. Right. So
how long have you been training for?
I've been consistently training. I started training, 2015? Okay. And then it was kind of that first year and a half was only once a week. Mm-hmm. Then once I changed jobs, you couldn't keep me away from that gym. I was in there every single day. Like we weren't open on Sunday. I was like, Coach, hey, can you open up the gym? Like, I got a couple guys, open mat, please. Yeah. Any opportunity I can get on those mats, we were there. Once I got promoted to blue belt, we had some changes. We moved locations, and the schedule got a little weird for me. And I was like, okay, let me try to still get in when I can. And, we figured it out. I was at the gym at least 6 out of 7 days. Yeah. And then COVID hit. And then after COVID hit, we would sneak in, a teammate and I, and we would just train one-on-one. Yeah. And just try to do the best that we could with what we had. Right. And once COVID
made stuff weird for sure.
Yeah. It's just, I don't. Well, I think also for me, before COVID, because I was going so much, my wife had to tell me one day. It was like, "Hey, so your kid hasn't seen you this week, so other than bedtime, because my wife works nights, so I'd come home, do the bedtime routine, and then I go to bed myself." She was like, "Yeah, your daughter's wondering like who's that strange guy." It's like, "Oh, okay."
Never
So
good, right?
yeah, it's like, "Who's this guy?" Like, "I'm your dad." Like, who? But when COVID hit, it was kind of a breath of fresh air at first. Like, it was a blessing in disguise, and that's not to make light of anyone who fell ill and passed, or were still suffering effects. But it slowed me down. It stopped me from, you know, basically not seeing my family. So
Yeah.
during that first month, it was just that. Like, my wife, she couldn't go back to work for a while. I was still working, but that's all I was doing. It was just work and then come home and spend time with family.
Yeah.
So, we caught up on movies because we're big movie buffs. So we're like, we haven't had a, evening to sit down and watch movies or anything. So we got back into that. And then once it became apparent that we could kind of get over to the gym a little bit and train, we just couldn't have organized classes. And it was like, okay, I'm back to it. So we're
Yeah.
going a couple days a week. But then even from that, after that, it's almost like once I got that break, I didn't feel like things didn't feel the same. Yeah, I had to try to figure out, and that's where I am now, as we're 2 years back on the mat, try to get my brain back to where I was before, where I was, you couldn't keep me away from the gym. Now it's like I get to the gym, I feel alive, I get out there, I do what I need to do, hang around for about 10, 15 minutes after class. Like I was in love with Jujutsu. Like
Mm-hmm.
right now, I'm in like with Jujutsu. We're going steady, but before we were on our way to walk down the aisle. Now it's just puppy love. So
Yeah.
that's where I am. I'm trying to get back to like fully committed to it.
Yeah. Well, it has its ups and downs. There's plenty of times where, along the way you're questioning like, man, am I just like never gonna get better at this? Am I never gonna make progress? And you do kind of lose motivation, but that's where it's like just keep showing up. Just like that's where that part comes in. Because like, yeah,
Right.
you're gonna have the bad days, but it's like there's it's you probably heard it on reels or whatever motivational speakers, but it's like
Yeah.
you don't need motivation, you need discipline. So when you just make it part of your routine to where it's like, it doesn't have to be every day, but if you train 3-4 days a week, you will get consistently better over time. If you're training 1 or 2 days a week, it might take a while. But in my opinion, 3 to 4 is like perfect. That's all you need to like steadily progress. And as long as you do that consistently, it doesn't have to be obsessive. Just you know, a committed hobbyist is all you need. And
Yep.
you put in the time, and before you know it, you'll be a black belt.
That was when I switched jobs and I had that period where I was there. I want to say it was probably 2 years, just 2 straight years of just consistently being there. Up through like what was it? What was our schedule? It used to be Monday night. We'd have our 7 o'clock class. Uh, Tuesday I would coach the kids. Wednesday I would train in the morning and train in the evening. Thursday coach the kids. Friday they were kind of on and off for the open mat. Saturday, if I could get in on a Saturday morning, because I work Saturday mornings. But sometimes my manager was like, go ahead and go train. Like you'll be fine. We're okay here. Then Sunday we started doing open mat. So it was like, but the main classes were the Monday and Wednesday for me. And that's where I felt best. That's where I felt like, okay, I'm really absorbing because you get that Monday class, you learn here. You go to Wednesday twice, and what you learned on Monday connects to Wednesday, and then you take it to open mat, and you start drilling. I just felt so much like, okay, this is it. This is where it's connecting. And right now, it is a discipline thing for me, for sure. So for you training like in the Chicago area, what's the jiu-jitsu scene like there in Illinois for you? Is it like, as far as like other academies near you, you guys, do you cross train at all any, or is it just kind of everybody kind of stays in their own lane and you guys see each other at competitions? I know you all just recently had the Chicago Open.
Yeah, it's kind of different. It's definitely different. This scene near Chicago, I don't live in Chicago. I live in like the suburbs just outside. Like in El Paso is kind of like isolated from everything outside of it. So within El Paso, there was like, I don't know, let's say there was like 7 decent sized jiu-jitsu gyms, which is pretty big for having like one town. But we would all cross train all the time. So it was cool. We would get together and we would have like a monthly open mat that would get like 100 people. And so it was like in El Paso, the idea was kind of like, people are trying to be the best in the world, not the best in El Paso. Like Andy Varela, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He just got silver at 80cc trials. He's from El Paso. I used to train with him all the time in El Paso. He was a monster. He's a savage. Strangled me every time I trained with him. He's in Vegas now, but like, he was from El Paso and then he eventually moved to Vegas to get a bigger, better, whatever scene. But like, I like that. But then when I moved up here, there are people who cross train, and there's like, the local 10th Planet, they have open mat on Sundays. And there's other people who do too, but it's not as popular for people to cross train. Like certain people do, certain people will travel, but it's like everything's so far apart, like not distance wise, but just because of traffic. Like I only live 8 miles from my academy, but it takes me 25 minutes to get there depending on traffic, So to go to the 10th Planet that's in Lombard, it takes me over an hour to get there, and it's only like 20 minutes away. So it's like, it's kind of a pain. So luckily our gym though, like it's full of savages. So it's like, you don't really need to go cross train if you don't want to, but like it always helps. I'm not against cross training. I recommend it to anybody, honestly. And I'm a huge fan of like, people take like jiu-jitsu trips where they'll like go to Austin and they'll like train at B Team or they'll train at New Wave. It's like, I've never done that myself personally yet, but I would love to do something like that in the future.
That's something I've been kind of toying with it lightly here in Maryland with the ideal of possibly another show ideal. As if I don't have enough podcasts. Sheesh. But yeah, I don't think there's a problem. Some places that, they kind of frown upon cross training. I like I said, this community, we've all got the same goal. That's to be, better at what we do. Yeah. So, going to other gyms, that's been something I've been thinking about, just kind of, because oddly enough, in our little area here in Maryland, we have quite a few gyms. Like it's just, just out of the blue, just, you'll be driving, you'll see like, oh shit, there's a gym right there.
They're everywhere now. It's great.
Like, go say hello, see how everybody's doing. But, it's not like the Cobra Kai days in like the 80s, it's like, oh, there's a local dojo. Let's go storm it.
Yeah.
Like, here's like, oh, there's another gym. Hey, how's it going? Cool. I'm Dante. Yeah. But I always wonder that with a lot of people because, people have different opinions on cross training. Most people that I've encountered though, think it's a good idea.
You shouldn't concern yourself with anybody who thinks cross training is bad.
Like, I've only met one person who's been opposed to it, and I was like, wow, like they were very, very opposed. I was like, okay, hey, relax.
It used to be more of a thing back in like the earlier days of jiu-jitsu, because like jiu-jitsu was like, it was almost like such a rare thing that people like tried to like covet their knowledge and they didn't want to share it. But now it's like BJJ Fanatics is a thing. So you can literally just go on there and you can download all of it. So it's like, what's the point of not allowing people to cross train? It literally was like, it's just insecurity. What are you afraid that they're going to leave your gym and go train there? It's like, well, maybe you suck at coaching. Be a better coach, and then they won't want to leave.
And that's my thought. It's like, look, man, if you love your gym, and just about everyone that I've trained with at one gym or the other, my own included, we've all loved our gym.
Yeah,
it's like, because there's a community within that. There's a family atmosphere that's built off of that, where, me going to other gyms, everyone that I've, touched base with at different gyms, all wonderful people.
Yeah.
Each
gym has its own like personality though, for sure.
Yes.
I got lucky. Like when I moved up here to Illinois, I picked a town that was kind of like centrally located to my family. And I looked ahead of time. I was like, is there at least a couple of jiu-jitsu gyms in the area? And there was a couple. I was like, okay. So then when I picked where I wanted to live, I was just like, all right, let's go see which jiu-jitsu academy I like the best. So I literally just looked on Google and I found BJJ Lab. It was the first one I went to. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like the vibe was very similar to my previous academy. Everyone was super great. And like there's a ton of veterans and stuff there. So it's like I just fit right in, And like that's not to say though that there's nothing wrong with like if you go to a jiu-jitsu academy and you just feel like it's not working, like try a different one. There's nothing wrong with trying a different one. It could be just the personalities. It doesn't mean they're bad at jiu-jitsu. You just might not click with the people there, and that can happen. There's just different people at different places, and
Yeah, the first gym that I trained at, I did a trial there, and all nice people. The vibe just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I'm more of a hobbyist, and everyone in that gym was looking to be. I was going to the no-gi classes, and most of these guys were more so looking to train MMA.
Right.
I was like, look, I'm just trying. I love MMA, but I'm just trying to learn, because initially what I started it all for was, I was like, look, I want to do a podcast. This was many years ago. I didn't even start the podcast, and I just fell in love with jiu-jitsu and was like, fuck that podcast. That we're never doing that. Here we are now.
Yeah.
And honestly, most of the time it's not even about jiu-jitsu on here. Most of the time we're talking about comic books, and horror movies. But
right.
But that gym, everybody was looking to be the next UFC champion, and I was like, that energy is a little too intense for me. I'm just a old dude that want to come here, get a good workout in, and channel some of my energy, because playing football was not working out for my joints anymore. I was taking too many hits, like just rattling my brain. I was like, okay, we got to find something different. But and that's the thing. I don't think those guys are bad. I bumped into them at one of our local MMA shows out here, Shogun Fights. Still wonderful guys,
right.
But just not the gym for me. And when people that I know out in that area, that they ask about putting their kids in a jiu-jitsu gym, I do recommend that gym. I say check them out. Our gym has an affiliate gym out that way as well. So I tell them, here are 3 gyms to go look at. I can let you know we have an excellent kids program. I'm not sure about their kids program, but the guys that run the gym are really, really nice guys. So I think that's always important. An important distinction to make there is, again, just because the gym didn't work for you doesn't mean that the gym is a bad gym.
Right. So, yeah, there's definitely a different vibe between like a MMA focused gym and like a jiu-jitsu focused gym. When I was at that MMA gym in El Paso, I still had some aspirations of potentially fighting MMA in the future. But then after I kept injuring my knee and I tore my ACL, it's like now the whole reason I stopped doing MMA is because I feel like if I took a good leg kick, my knee would probably just explode. So I was like, I'll just stick to jiu-jitsu. Yeah, it is what it is. Like injuries happen. I'm not to say I don't compete still. I haven't competed recently, but it's just hard, because like once you get to like the brown and black belt level, it's like most of the people at that level are like basically like semi-professional athletes. So it's like any little weakness is going to be detrimental, So when you have ripped up knees and stuff, it's not to say you can't win. It's just going to be really hard. So that's why I've personally just focused more on teaching as of late. I get just as much joy out of teaching people and then seeing them compete and win as I do like competing myself. So it's like, that's kind of what, Danaher did, is like, he has a messed up leg. So he just trains world-class killers. So it's like, hey, if I can follow somewhat along that route, I'd be happy with that.
There's joy in that too, to see the impact that you may have had as a coach or a mentor, as a teacher, as an instructor, that's extremely rewarding. So, sometimes it's, you're better served just doing that, just, leading instead of, and it's always, a nice thing to say, okay, lead by example. Your coach is out there, kicking ass and winning, gold medals. That's cool. But also what's cool is a guy that's focused 100% on you as an athlete. So, that my friend is probably the more important thing for you, I think. I got a question though about when you first went to your gym, and you were talking about the vibe there, because one of the things that got me with my gym, I wore a Spider-Man shirt, and I came in, all the eyes locked, and then we got to talking. And then it was like, oh my god, they're all nerds like me.
Oh,
But
right.
we're into this.
It was the veteran community that drew me into BJJ Lab. Yeah, we have a lot of first responders, police, firefighters, veterans, all that. So I showed up, and Mark is a former, or I shouldn't say former Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine, right? Mark's a Marine. We have another guy who's a Marine. We have another guy who is from somewhere near the Mediterranean, who was like special forces. I met everybody, and I kind of was like, oh, okay, I should fit right in here. And then Mark is just a great guy. My professor, Mark, being one of Damien's black belts, he's a 6-time national champion. So he's amazing at Jujutsu. So BJJ Lab specifically, but Jujutsu in general, is like, it can be as big of a part of your life as you want it to be, depending on your academy. Our academy has a very, it's almost like a family vibe. We help each other out outside of the gym whenever we can. We get together for like cookouts and birthdays, and we try to be very tight knit at our gym, and we try to rely on each other for stuff. And Mark being a veteran, me being a veteran, a bunch of other people being first responders and veterans, we have a lot of resources that most people probably don't. So one of the cool things that I did at BJJ Lab was when Hurricane Ida hit like a year and a half ago, like 4 of us from the gym, me, Mark, this other guy, and Peter, we all drove in a truck from Chicago down to New Orleans with food, water, all this stuff, and just helped people during the hurricane. We took chainsaws and cut trees off of people's houses, and we just felt like we wanted to go help some people, especially with everything going on in the world at the time. And so that kind of spawned the Overwatch Foundation, which is a thing that we do now, that Mark is very heavily involved with the war effort over in Ukraine. One of our training partners, Yuri, is from Ukraine. His family is over there still. Yuri is an American citizen now, but his whole family is from Ukraine. So, it all started with, they just wanted to take Yuri home to check on his family, and then ended up with them, they've been getting tourniquets, first aid kits, plate carriers, armor, all this stuff. So it's really amazing. Mark's a great guy. He really finds how to bring the best out of people. That's what you want in an instructor,
Yeah, I mean, well, and that's the thing, like you said, the family vibe that y'all have there, and just going down and helping with the hurricane. Those are things that I feel like that just strengthens, just helping others and doing it together.
Right.
It's I feel like most gyms, they have that closeness, but even still with that, there still is, some, matters of okay, you get guys that come in, they kind of come in, do their thing, and then leave. But as an overall, if you can establish a good, close-knit family feel, I think, your gym, any gym, is doing, the right thing. It's doing, the right thing for the community too. Because I always say this as a kid from, having been through, from Detroit, went through the foster care system, ended up in Flint, Michigan, just, these rough communities. And, one thing that you don't see a lot of is that community feel, something like, a gym, a jiu-jitsu academy, and it's like
Mhm.
anything of that matter, just bringing people together. So what you all have there, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. You said you were in the foster care system. I also went through the foster care system as a kid. That's something
Okay.
else we can get into. Like I kind of just started my life at 9 years old earlier when I started my jiu-jitsu journey, but before all of that, when I lived with my mom, I lived in Washington State, and that was a much different life. My life with my dad was pretty good and pretty stable, but when I lived with my mom, it was wild chaos. My mom was addicted to every drug there was. I was one of four siblings who pretty much raised ourselves. We were latchkey kids, ran around all day doing what the hell ever we wanted, whenever we wanted. It's amazing. I almost got kidnapped one time. Almost got hit by a car. Well, I did get hit by a car. It just didn't hit me that bad. It hit my bike. Yeah, so I was in foster care 3 times before the age of 9, and then the third time is when my dad finally found out about it and got custody of me. That was a whole big issue. The state of Washington failed to notify my dad that my mom was failing to luckily, thank God, my mom now she's been clean and
Good.
she's doing a lot better. She lives in Michigan now with my sisters, and she's a grandma doing her thing now, so she's better now. But me and my siblings went through a lot because of her when we were younger. Me and my older brother got put in one foster home. My 2 sisters got put in another foster home. They got adopted by that foster mom, so I didn't even see them for 8 years until after high school. Yeah, that's a whole crazy thing. All my siblings, we have the same mom, but we're from different dads. So when my dad got custody of me, he couldn't get custody of my brother. So when I got pulled out of foster care, I had to leave my older brother. And that was the worst thing. And then I didn't talk to him for 6 years because this was pre-social media and all that.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, needless to say, from my childhood and all that, and being in foster care and switching homes and switching schools and all this stuff all the time, I sort of developed attachment and all that stuff. So been working with that my whole life. It's always good.
James, you and I are, pretty much everything that you just said there. It's me, except for I didn't have sisters. My mom had all boys.
Yeah.
I was the oldest of the 4, and 3 of us ended up with one family, wonderful family in Flint. The youngest ended up with a nice family in Flint as well. They eventually adopted him. Once at 1990, I was 12. My grandparents adopted me because I was the oldest. So it's look, he's 12. It's only 6 years. That dude can get out at 18. I was like, all right, fair enough. I didn't. I turned 18. They're like, stay longer. It's okay, you're dying. But my uncle, he took on 2 of my 2 younger brothers, the 2 in the middle. And our mom, she's still kicking up there in Michigan. It's a difficult relationship between she and I. But we communicate. We fight more like we're siblings.
Yeah.
So, and there's always the joke in the family because my grandparents adopted me, so legally they're my parents. So my uncle always calls me nephew brother, and just weird things like that. But yeah, we are parking our cars in the same garage, my friend.
Yeah, stuff like that growing up, it sucks, but at the same time, it definitely forged some character into me that I don't think I would have developed otherwise. My personality is my whole life I was always very driven because I was I need to get the fuck out of here. Sorry if I'm not supposed to swear.
Nah, you're good.
But yeah, growing up, luckily the one thing my mom told me when I was young is she told me that to always make sure I go to school and to make sure I learn as much as I can. So I was all right, I'm gonna do that. So I don't even know how as a kid I made it to school on time because my mom never woke me up for school. I just woke up and went, and it was some embarrassing things happened. Like I showed up to school one time. I think I was in like first grade. I wet the bed, and I was a first grader. I didn't know. I just woke up, went to school. We used to live on the same street as the school, so I would just walk to school. So I literally like woke up, rolled out of bed, and just walked to school. And I got there, my teacher was like, "Oh my God, James, are you okay?" I was like, "Huh, what?" She was like, "You smell like pee." I was like, "What?" I was a clueless first grader. I had no freaking idea. She called my mom. Are you aware that your son's here? Like just typical drug addict mom stuff, you know. And you know, I got older and I started realizing that I was like, oh, okay, this isn't how everyone's life is. I was like, so, you know, it forces you to grow up quick. I'm sure you got told your whole life that you were very mature for your age. I've always gotten
Very
that.
much.
Yeah. It's like, well, I sort of had to be, you know. I like saw some crazy shit as a kid. I saw my babysitter get punched in the face by her dad one time when I was like 7. You know, it's like.
Yeah. I said to my wife, joking. Well, today I was joking with my daughter because it was dinner time. I was like, I said to my daughter, I was like, Sophie, you're going to go make us dinner. She's 6. And she goes, I don't know how to cook. And then, my retort to that was, I mean, that, I was cooking at 6. And my wife goes, on a stove. I was like, yes.
I have a funny story about that.
She goes, well, I'm sorry our kid didn't have to go into survival mode, before the age of 10. I was like, I mean, it's what got me here. So, and then I proceeded to tell the story about how, yes, I was cooking on the stove, but also as a little kid, I was curious. So, you put hot water on the stove, it boils. That seems logical. I saw a pot of oil and I was like, I wonder if you do that. Will the oil, boil like water? As a 7-year-old kid, you forget things like turning the fire on when there's a pot of oil. So, I went and played. I'm sitting in the dining room and I see flickering on the kitchen wall, like light.
Oh,
and I go in, there's a big ass flame just engulfing the kitchen. I was like, and fortunately there was someone home. Normally it was just my brothers and I at home. No one was ever home with us. Fortunately, my uncle, who at the time was a male stripper who would cross over to Canada to go dance and make his Canadian dollars. Fortunately, he was home and asleep.
Yeah.
So I run upstairs, I bang on the door. He comes down. The fire was actually just kind of isolated to the pot, the saucepan. Right. So it wasn't too bad. So he grabbed the towel, grabbed the fire, or grabbed the pot, and threw it out, the front door. He ran it across, the dining room, living room, tossed out on the front lawn. But just after I told that story, and I looked at my daughter, I was like, yeah, okay, so yeah, you don't have to make dinner tonight. It was like maybe we're breaking generational curses here. Maybe you won't set something on fire. Yeah. Because everyone else in our family has.
Yeah. Some people though, they don't like, I'm sure I bet there's people out there who still experience that struggle. There has to be, but it's like,
yeah, I'm certain.
Like, it's weird growing up as a kid, and then it's like there's just no food in the house, and you're hungry, and you're like, "Huh, what do I do about this? I don't know how to hunt. I'm a child, So I remember, like, just like you were saying, I was like maybe 7, 8 years old one time, and I was like at the house. It was probably summertime because I wasn't at school, and I always liked school because school was like one of my guaranteed meals every day. I would go to school, and it's like, hey, I get to eat lunch, great. And then usually after school, I would go to a friend's house and mooch dinner off of them. That was kind of like how I survived. But in the summer, it became hard, right? So I was home one day. I was super hungry. I was like, I need to eat something. I found a can of carrots in the cabinet. And I was like, all right, I'll just warm these up. So I found what I thought was like a pan. It turned out to be like a pie tin. And I put it on like the stove. And I just put the carrots in it. And so this pie tin started like bowing up and like turning all red. And I was like, oh, what's going on here? And then I turned it off, and I was like eating these like half cold, mushy carrots. But I was like, I'm so hungry. But yeah, that was the type of shit I did as a kid just to get by. But now I live. I did 10 years in the military. Had a great time. Not really. Military was kind of its own deal. But I did my 10 years in the military, got out, and now I'm blessed to be able to teach jujitsu and like, yeah, jujitsu filled like a really big hole in my life that,
Good.
yeah, it's like hard sometimes when you lose your career and then you lose like a girlfriend and like, everyone has their struggles, but I actually, after the third time I tore my ACL, I actually developed like clinical depression. That was another thing that led to me getting out of the military ultimately. And yeah, it's just like mental health is a real thing. You can get into like a deep pit to where like you just don't want to do anything. But luckily, I always wanted to go to jiu-jitsu, even when I didn't feel like doing anything. I was like, well, I'll go to jiu-jitsu because I always feel better when I do jiu-jitsu. Even when I tore my ACL and I could barely train, I would go to jiu-jitsu and I would just like drill. And my coach thought I was a freaking madman because I was back on the mats, like, not training, but like just there watching and observing like days after my surgery, And he was always like, even after all of your injuries, you always came back better than you were when you left. And, I did. The reason I was able to accomplish that was because in the off time, I was always watching jiu-jitsu. I was thinking about jiu-jitsu. I was watching UFC. I was, I'm a student of the game. I love martial arts. I like learning about everything. So, I got myself a BJJ Fanatics account. Like, for anyone out there, if you plan on being a serious grappler, get a BJJ Fanatics account. It's like you can literally find anything on there for whatever game you like to play, from whatever instructor you like. And so, yeah, I was sitting on my couch, popping my freaking painkillers, watching BJJ Fanatics videos. And that's how I recouped for, 3-4 months after each of my ACL surgeries. Had to go through that shit 3 separate times.
Yeah. What happened with the ACL injuries? Like, how'd that happen? If you don't mind sharing that.
Yeah. So the first time was it was in between my junior and senior year of ROTC when I was in college. So I went to this leadership assessment course they do in ROTC that used to be in Fort Lewis. It used to be called LDAC. It has a different name now, but it was basically the leadership assessment course. So I went to that, did really well. And then when I got back, I started my senior year at Indiana University, and we were doing some PT, and I just jumped off of something. And when I came down, I just landed weird and blew out my knee. Complete tear, blew my entire ACL out, tore my meniscus. Yeah, that sucked. Went to the hospital, did an MRI. They're like, yeah, your ACL's torn. So had surgery like a week later. And then I basically had this was in I think August. And I basically had until June to recoup my knee and pass a PT test in order to be able to commission active duty as an infantry officer, which is what I had just spent my entire life working to do, right? I specifically trained really hard in high school and got good grades and got to college and did ROTC so that I could be an officer in the military. And I was on the cusp of accomplishing that goal, and then I tear my ACL. So I recouped my knee during my senior year of ROTC and my senior year of, college, which that was a bummer, having a torn ACL for most of my senior year. But ended up passing that PT test I needed to take, commissioned, and then I got sent to Georgia to do my officer basic training, basically. And then while I was there, I was doing some training and I tore it again. So then I got sent to my duty station. I completed the training, but tore my knee in the process. Got sent to my duty station, got my knee fixed again. And then when I was in Kuwait, 4 years later, my knee was good for a while. And then 4 years later, when I was in Kuwait, I was literally just running on some gravel, took a corner and just slipped and bang, blew it out again. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And then I just went in a deep, dark hole after that because I had been working really hard to recoup from these injuries all this time that I was active duty. And every time it just another one. And then on my shoulder on top of that. So I hurt my knee. And then I was trying to like do something on the side to keep myself in shape. So I like volunteered to teach combatives to people because it just was, I knew Jujutsu, so I was teaching people. And this dude like just inexplicably spikes me on my shoulder. I was like, what are you doing? Like, we're literally practicing right now. Why would you do that? You go, oh, my bad, man. So then I got home from Kuwait, had my shoulder and my knee fixed again. And then, then I had like this whole thing with depression. So I was like struggling with work because I just like, because of my knee and my shoulder, like this still, I'm in pain every day because of them. I just don't really talk about it too much. I've just kind of learned, like, if you saw me on the mats, you would never know that I had 3 knee surgeries and a shoulder surgery because I've basically beat my body into compliance because I just refuse to not train. Because it's like, even though it's not the best thing for me physically, it's by far the best thing for me mentally. And so it's like, whatever, you only get one body, you might as well break it, right?
I wonder sometimes too, when it comes to going through so much adversity, especially when it comes to like ACL injuries, shoulder injuries, just injuries, period. I wonder if you get to a certain point though, because I think I went through something like this with football and basketball where my body was just so beat up. I didn't know what was supposed to hurt anymore. So when you're out there, it's like you say, like people would never have known you've had these surgeries because, you're going through it and it's just your body is kind of on autopilot almost. Like I mentioned to my wife, something about, she looked at my hand, my fingers were just mangled. And she was like, doesn't it hurt? And, it was like, no, I mean, it's uncomfortable, but I don't know what hurt is anymore. I'm not sure what pain necessarily is versus, the average person who doesn't do anything, as active as we do, and that's not to say jiu-jitsu or grappling period is the toughest thing, hockey players are lunatics, football players aren't tightly wound, rugby players are, hidden serial killers, I think, like all these crazy people doing these crazy things. But, your average person, they sneeze too hard and they throw their back out. Meanwhile, we're out there getting twisted, and then we're like, oh, good roll. All right, let's run it back.
It's like that meme. The average male thinks he's like 9,000% more capable in a fight than he actually is. It's like people have no idea how true that is. Like I can say confidently now, like, now that I'm a black belt after a decade and some change of training, I think the actual count is about 12 plus years and some change. Not even including my wrestling experience, just since I started Jiu-Jitsu in 2010, officially. A funny story related to that, right? So I went up to Michigan recently to visit my sisters, like, what was it, last summer before? Either way. We're having a bonfire. She has a couple of her local dude friends, not athletes, no martial arts training. We get talking about jiu-jitsu, whatever. And they're like, oh, yeah. They're like, all right, let's wrestle. I was like, are you sure? No, yeah, let's wrestle a little bit. I'm like, you're going to lose, like, for sure. And my sister, I love my older sister. She's the best. My older sister was also a Marine. I come from a military family. My dad was in the Army. My older brother is currently in the Navy still. My older sister is a Marine. My younger brother is still in the Army. The only one who wasn't in the military is my younger sister, and that's just because she has some medical issues that aren't her fault, but disqualify her. But anyway, so I'm like, all right. I was like, I'll grapple with you guys. And so this, I grabbed this guy, just like a simple like collar tie and like wrist control, and he like just couldn't move. And he was like, oh my God, you're so strong. And I was like barely touching him, And then, I put him in a standing guillotine and tapped him, and then I let him go. And then he's all right, let's go again. And then I like took him down, swept him real easily, arm barred him, triangled him, I submitted him like 4 times in like literally like a minute. Just show, not hurting him, just whatever. And then I went with the other guy who he was also a Marine. That's how he knew my sister. He's a small guy though, like 140 pounds, and also no grappling training other than like the 1 day of combatives they give you in the Marine Corps. And so same thing, took him down, submitted him. I even like let him take my back at one point and then just like threw him off me and then like choked him out. I was just like, just showing them basically how like effortlessly I could just ragdoll them. And it's like, people don't realize that like that's real. Like if you don't train and you come across someone who does train, like unless you get lucky and you blast them with a haymaker, you have zero chance.
I always talk about that a lot. People say, look, another thing too is like, I try to explain is like, my wife's best friend made a comment because they put their son in Taekwondo, and I know we make jokes, about it. I think putting your kid in any martial art just to kind of build that core discipline and just that routine, I think is very important, especially at a young age. But I was my wife, who sticks up for jiu-jitsu, she defends jiu-jitsu as if she does it. She says, well, why don't you put them in jiu-jitsu? And my wife's friend goes, well, the thing is about those guys doing jiu-jitsu, they're all looking for fights. They're all out there picking fights with people, and they're all, all these things. And it was like, when my wife brought this info back to me, I then went onto Facebook because that was my primary like thing at the time, and just putting up all these memes and like posts saying, some things like, if you don't know, if you've never been on the mat, you don't know, shit like that. Just little like nods. And I know she, she's a lurker. So we did get to talk one day, and I explained to her how like most of us that train, we don't, we're not looking for fights. We don't want to fight. If anything, we're going to try to talk this situation down if there is a threatening situation, unless, the person puts their hands on us. And then even with that, we're just trying to contain them. We're not trying to beat them up. Because I think, she was talking about punches and kicks. I was like, we don't punch, nor do we kick.
Right.
Like, we are grapplers. We control a situation if we need to control it. But, I always talk about it with friends where it's like, in any situation, any, fight situation, it's like, if you're trying to fight somebody, you're going to empty your gas tank just trying to throw haymakers.
Mm-hmm.
And, most of us grapplers that's at least been doing it for at least a year, maybe two, understand, just cover up. They're going to get tired, and they're going to get close enough for us to grab them. And then we're just going to take them down, and we could hold them there, or we could smash them. We could choke them. It's like they have no idea. And I always tell people, it's like, you have no idea how quickly this could end for you. And the thing is, I'm not going to grapple with my friends, and I want to, but they don't, most of them don't want to do anything of that nature. It's like, and granted, I'm in my 40s, like my mid 40s. What do I look like? Talk about, come on, dude, let's go wrestle on the lawn. I got some mats in the basement. Like, come on through, dude. Right. But people, most people are very clueless as to, and not even just jiu-jitsu, even if you wrestled, that control that you have with wrestling, and it's just easy for you just to take anyone down, slam them, and there's nothing anyone has to offer other than the simple ouch.
The great thing about grappling is when you take someone to the ground, you negate their most dangerous weapon, which is striking. Like, you can't throw an effective punch from your back. Like, maybe if you get lucky, you can do some Kevin Holland shit. But
he's also trained.
He's also a professional fighter who did that. So he's worked on some shit. But yeah, back in my younger days and my early teens, my early 20s, I was much more of a hothead. As I've aged and as I've trained more, I've definitely cooled down a bit. Plus, now that I'm out of the military, I might have some extracurriculars that help my mood as well. So it's like living in Illinois, you gotta do what you can to keep your sanity. Like when I was 15. I think I was a freshman in high school, so I was about 15. You know, I got in a locker room fight with a kid who was like trying to bully me. I don't know why he was trying to bully me. He wasn't bigger than me or anything. He just thought I was the kid to pick on. I was like a tall, scrawny kid back then. I don't think he knew that I wrestled. So he just picked me as like the kid he was gonna, you know, mess with. And you know, one day we're in the locker room after PE, which is the class we shared, and he like took his shirt off and started whipping me in the face with it. I was like, dude, come on, like cut the shit, like give it a rest. And he's like, oh, whatever, you know, whatever trash talk 15-year-olds do when they're trying to fight somebody. So then I wasn't afraid of him. So I was like, all right, let's go then. And I got in his face. So then he shoved me, and like there was this little like bench thing behind me, you know, like if you've ever been in a locker room, there's usually like a bench around the locker. He like pushed me, and I didn't fall over, but I kind of like sat down on it. And then when I popped back up, I like shoved him real hard, right? So then it was on, and he like threw a punch at me, and I put my hand up and I just blocked it, right? And then I just overhooked him, and then I just hit him with like 2 right hands and kind of like pushed him away. And then we went into like this crazy like flurry. I was like so pissed. I didn't know what I was doing back then. I was 15. I hadn't learned all the shit I know now. We got in this crazy like flurry. We were both doing like the helicopter thing, and I was like, wait, calm down. And I literally, I remember this point of like, I had this point of clarity. I had just started watching the UFC, and I was just like, Muay Thai clinch. I got him in a Muay Thai clinch, and I just hit him with like 2 knees, and then I threw him into the wall. He tried to throw a leg kick at me, which I checked, and then I hit him with a leg kick. He like buckled sideways, and I threw a right hook, hit him like flush, and it made like that sound. And he was like, oh. And then he like turned and walked away. So I was like, all right, he's done. And then as I walked away, he tried to cheap shot me. And my buddy Andrew was like, watch out. So just reflexively, I put my arm up, blocked his punch from around the side, caught him in a headlock, and then hip tossed him. And then we landed on the ground, and everyone was like, oh. There was like 20 dudes in the locker room. They all went nuts. And and then they broke it up after I hip tossed him. But that happened. Class ended. I walked to my next class, which was like 1 hallway away. And in that period, somehow everyone found out about the fight that had just happened. I was like, well, I guess that's high school for you. I was like, and this was like back when most people, like maybe a few people had cell phones, but most people didn't yet. And it was crazy. I was like, how did everyone just find out? But the great thing about that, though, was I kicked his ass my freshman year. And then for the rest of high school, no one said shit to me. Because they were like, dude, McClughen can fight.
That's currency right there, son. Like you get all it takes is one good ass kick, and they know. All right, like no matter what happens the rest of the 4 years, you are royalty. It just those are the rules. Like I didn't write those rules. That's just how it goes. Yeah, it's just that's always that weird thing with people who don't know how to fight are quick to want to start some shit. And the people who do know how to fight are like, look, man, I know the damages that can be done here. I don't want to do it, but if you want me to fuck you up, I'll fuck you up. But I'm not even going to fuck you up. I'm just going to make you look silly, But, there was I don't like watching street fight videos.
Yeah.
Because like part of it is I see just piss poor technique. And it's like, oh my God, you're missing so many opportunities. But also people can seriously get hurt. And I just saw a video recently. A dude got spiked on his head. And he got up and he was stumbling and bumbling. And someone put in the comments one thing that everybody's like, making jokes in the comments. And one dude was like, man, you got to be careful when you spike someone on the head because you go from beating someone in a street fight to being a murderer now.
Yeah. And I used to be much more of a hothead, and I used to my Instagram handle is BJJ James. It used to be MMA James. And like, I seriously, like MMA James was like, he was a different dude. When I was in my early 20s, I was like borderline crazy. And because I thought I was like, I'm either going to end up being like in the military and I'm going to have to go fight, that way. Or if I get out of the military, I'm going to try to do like the UFC or something. That was my mind back then. So I was never the guy to like start anything, but I had like zero back down in me back when I was in my early 20s. So when you're in your bar years, all it takes is one dude to say one comment and then,
Yep.
So I had my fair share of, bar fights and whatnot, but luckily, you know, I never got arrested. No one ever got seriously hurt. I choked a few people out, knocked a few people out. nothing too bad. Never let anyone's head bounce off the concrete though.
Well, that's the scariest part. When you see the head dribble, it's like, oh boy.
Yeah, you getting hit by the earth, as Joe Rogan says, is not nice.
Yes, the earth has no give.
Yeah, it's big.
Oh, yeah. Like, back in my younger years, I was also a hothead, and it's we joke about it. I sometimes go on another podcast, Nerd Rage Radio, which I shout them out every so often on here, and one of my nicknames on there is and with us today we have Dante the Destroyer. And my wife hates it. She hates it so much. She's like, don't they know that's not you anymore? I was like, yeah, but we all grew up. I've known these guys for 20 some odd years now.
Right.
They give you a nickname and that nickname sticks. It's like, what why they call you Chip Tooth, Pete? Well, like, all your teeth are fine. Oh, see, you don't know. Take the cap off.
Right.
But it's like, looking back on those days, there are times where they make the jokes, and I feel bad when they remind me of certain things. It's like, you remember the time you open hand smacked this person? It's like, yeah, I do. I kind of repressed that memory. I've been working on that in therapy, dude. Like, why are we bringing that up on the air? Shit like that. It's weird to think, as you get older, especially, you start to think, it's like, some battles aren't worth it. Or even, on the other side of that, it's like you said, it's like, you're not one to start the fight, but there's no back down. Yeah. I think there was a moment for me where I was in the bar. I'm not good at pool at all. I'm probably the worst pool player ever.
I suck at pool too.
It's like, if the 8 ball is right there, all I got to do is tap that in. I will somehow miss the 8 ball. It is impossible, but I find the possibles there. I missed an easy shot this one game, and a guy and his friends, they're walking by, and one guy mocks me. He goes, "You almost made that shot." And I looked up and I was like, "Bitch, you almost sucked my dick." And he goes, "What the fuck did you say to me?" And, and I repeated it. We kind of start walking up to each other's faces, and I see that he's got a group of guys, and I got a group of guys, but they're not really fighters. In that moment, he backed down, which is fine because I was about to back down. Like, we got in each other's face, and then, I'm kind of standing there because this is the mature Dante, and I'm thinking, dude, I don't want to do this, but I also don't want to look like a punk. And then the guy goes, "You know what, man? I'm sorry." Like, I don't even know what I was thinking. I was like, "You know what, man? My bad too. Like, who am I to say that to you? Let me get you a beer." It's like, "Don't worry about it." It's like, "All right, man. Well, y'all be safe."
Yeah, just kind of squashed it.
And I think that was that moment in life where I realized, oh shit, like, this can be done. I can walk away from it. I don't have to actually fight anyone. Right. And since then, that's the way my brain has kind of been working now. Like, my whole philosophy is, if you hit me, maybe it was an accident. I don't know. People make mistakes. You hit me twice. People fuck up twice. It's been known to happen. You're not going to get a third time, though.
Right.
It's like, because after that second time, I'm now looking at you like, okay, where's this going? Because you ain't hit me a third time. Now, as far as any of my friends or family, don't even think about it. You do that, I feel like I have to step in.
Right.
And I have friends that say, you don't have to step in, but it's like, I'm a protective person.
I'm the same way. I got in more fights protecting my friends than anything.
Yeah. Like, it's weird because it's like, if I see people fighting, if I see friends fighting, I'll break it up amongst the friends. But if it's like somebody, is messing with my friends, I'm quick to run up and, start barking. And it's like, okay, they, I don't even know what they might be old friends, goofing off. And because I did that to someone actually fairly recently, within the last 5 years. One of my teammates, this was on social media, someone came on and they were joking with them. They made, I guess a what I thought was a rude comment, and I flew off the handle on this person. And it was like, because it was a female teammate that they said whatever they said, and I went off, and then I realized, like, looking, I was like, oh shit, they're friends. Okay, Dante, get back in your cage.
I made a mistake. Yeah.
Hey, calm down, dude. But I get you, dude. I completely get you.
Yeah, you just got to be careful too. Like, one, Jujutsu only works when it's one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
If there's multiple people, your Jujutsu is not going to help you, really.
No.
At that point, just fucking run, literally. And then two, you don't want to have like what happened with freaking Leandro Lowe just happened, where that fucking dude shot him like a little bitch.
Yeah.
It's like people are crazy these days. People don't believe in like a good, fist fight. They'll like pull a knife and stab you, or pull a gun and shoot you. Which is unfortunate. I think if more people were in martial arts and like got humbled regularly to realize that, like, one, it's okay to lose, and two, you're not all that you think you are. Like, that would do a lot for people in today's world, I think, because there's too many people who are just like, they're super entitled. They think the entire world just belongs to them for nothing. So I don't know where you guys got this idea, but as far as I know, you have to work for everything that you get in this life.
And not even just have to work for it, though, too. It's like, even if you work to earn it,
you have to work to maintain it.
Yeah, it's not just like, okay, I have it, now I keep it. No, you got to maintain that. Also, and I'm not sure, if this is accurate, but I believe, like, it was being said that the dude who shot Leandro Lowe was a purple belt in Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, so he probably knew who he was.
That's what, like, my teammate and I were talking about it. That's what, really fucking bummed us out, because it's like, it's not like, you're a purple belt. It's not like there's some stranger that, you're all in Brazil. It's like, pretty sure you know who this guy is.
He's a legend.
And and you do that. It's like, I don't know. The shit, it's.
And the guy was a cop.
Yeah.
So it's like, imagine, I told someone this analogy. I was like, imagine if, say, Kobe Bryant, instead of his helicopter crash, imagine if he had gotten shot at a pickup game of basketball by an off-duty cop in LA. Could you fucking imagine the outroar and like the windfall that would have come of that?
Oh, yeah. That would have been, that would have been a nightmare for that guy, for sure, if he would have even made it to the station, or survived to be arrested.
Yeah, well, there's been riots and stuff at the police station in Brazil.
Yes,
I don't know what happened with that, but
I mean, it's a again, unfortunate situation that was super avoidable. If the guy just wasn't a bitch, it's like, okay, you got put in check.
Yeah,
take that L. Move on with your life.
Yeah, just take your L, man. There's nothing, especially it's Leandro Lowe. No one's gonna call you a bitch for getting held down by Leandro Lowe because you tried to steal his bottle. Like, hey man, that was kind of stupid of you. Like, if you were my friend and you did that, I'd be like, hey dummy, what were you thinking?
Like, quite honestly, it's like Leandro Lowe just like put you in check.
Right.
You might want to say, maybe, I don't know, thank you. I wasn't my right frame of mind. My bad, dude. Like, some fucking respect. You know what? All right, let me get out of that, because like, my brain is all heated.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's we got to be careful out there, man. Real quick, I want to take us back to pre-on-air conversation. I need to, because look, I am relatively clueless to DragonBall Z, so I didn't come prepared with any specific questions. Although I caught wind, I was like, okay, I know he's into Dragon Ball. I need to brush up. Maybe I want to do some Dragon Ball trivia. I didn't have anything for you. I do apologize for that, but I want to have you back on. I will have Dragon Ball trivia for you. That is a promise. But with your love for Dragon Ball Z, like that's like just pure from childhood, correct? That's not like you came on board later.
No, yeah. So when I was in like elementary school, so like 95, 96, when Dragon Ball Z first made its debut in America, because Dragon Ball actually originally aired in Japan in like, I believe like 89, like Dragon Ball. It's a pretty old anime.
But, I do know that much. Yes.
Yeah, but it premiered in the United States when I was in elementary school, and it used to come on right when I got home from school. So I'd get home from school, new episode of Dragon Ball Z, and then it ran through the Saiyan saga, and then like it restarted. Then it ran through the Saiyan saga, but then it added the Frieza saga, and then it restarted again, and then so it kept doing that. But I watched it every time, all the way through, all the way up, and I stayed current with it. I saw all the movies, everything, and I just loved it. I like martial arts. The main character, Goku, he's a martial artist. And I just thought the whole idea was cool that every time that the Saiyans fight, they get a little bit stronger. So yeah, I just always loved the show. I think, there's like on my belt, I have the quote from the Turtle Hermit School: work hard, study well, eat and sleep plenty. And it's like, sure, it's from a cartoon, but as far as like mottos to live by, like you could do worse,
That's true. I mean, no, those are solid. Like as you say, it was like, shit, I need to fucking put that on my wall here in a room just as a reminder.
Yeah. So like the Turtle Hermit way, it always like kind of resonated with me because I always believed, work hard, study. It's like it's pretty much how I lived my whole life. So it's like perfect. And yeah, and who doesn't want to go Super Saiyan? So it's like it was just always the coolest thing. And so yeah, it's been a huge part of my whole life.
My daughter, she's into like a lot of wild things. She's 6, so she's absorbing things now. I think that might be a joint venture for she and I to get into Dragon Ball Z and just jump in. Those early days. I have one of the guys from Nerd Rage Radio. He tried to get me into anime, just in general, and I just couldn't do it. It was like I was trying. I was like, I can't do this. And I know my wife early on liked Dragon Ball Z, before we met. So it's like, you know what? Maybe now's that time. Because I never hear anything bad about Dragon Ball Z in terms of like, it's like me growing up being an X-Men fan.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the comics were what they were. They did get a little odd after they let Chris Claremont go, and the stories just kind of went into whatever they wanted, and they did well. And then the movies and the cartoons, but you hear your mixed feelings about things, but I don't hear too much about Dragon Ball Z in terms of like anyone saying they disliked most stuff. I think like the one movie with I can't remember the guy's name. They're both on the TV show Shameless though. It's just happened that they're both in a Dragon Ball Z movie. I hear people not say kind things about that movie. I was like, okay, well, not everything can be a home run, but I think I'm gonna sit down with my daughter and be like, look, kid, here you go. She's been watching Nickelodeon with me lately, like old Nickelodeon stuff. So I think she's in.
If you're, do you mean like the live action Dragon Ball movie that they made that one time?
Yeah.
So that movie is garbage. Don't ever watch that. Don't even waste your time. Dragon Ball Evolution, I believe is the name. I went and saw that in theaters, and I was like, what is this garbage? Like, they completely changed the story of Dragon Ball Z. They changed the way, the technique. Like, no, it's not even Dragon Ball.
It didn't like, not even just from that, it didn't look like the cinematography didn't look good either. It just looked.
Yeah, it was just terribly done. I was like, I literally could have done better on this movie if I had directed it. Yeah, I always loved it. I was super happy when they started making the new movies and when they made like, Battle of Gods, Resurrection X, and they started Dragon Ball Super. So Dragon Ball Super first started coming out when I was like, it was like what, 2014 or 15, something like that. And I was like, oh, sweet, new Dragon Ball Z stuff. So I was playing like the games all my life. So yeah, it's just always been something. And then being a martial artist myself, it's like, just try to follow in Goku's footsteps, try to just train hard and just keep getting better.
I just pulled up here on my phone. It's like, okay, let's go ahead and get into it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down with my daughter. We're going to watch some Dragon. I'm certain she'll probably take more to it than me. I'll probably be in. I'm like, yeah, I'm into this. Then one day I'm just like, hey, so I'm going to go ahead and play video games. So I was like, no, I got to watch Dragon Ball Z. So next time I have you on here, I'll probably have like cliff notes from my daughter and written in crayon, telling me, you got to say this. You got to remember this part too.
Yeah.
But
it's a good show.
It's one of those things where it's iconic.
Yeah.
Goku is, an icon. It's like you see, the gifs, the memes, you see them everywhere. So, even if you haven't watched Dragon Ball Z, you kind of know Dragon Ball Z just by proxy. So, it's definitely something that I think is, stood the test of time and it holds up. So, I'll be prepared for you next time.
Sounds good.
Now I know this might be some bias here. On the last question here, Goku versus Superman.
Oh man,
how does that go down?
I've gotten into this with a bunch of people. I mean, so it depends on which version of Superman you want to use, because I'm fairly into comics as well. So there's like pre-crisis Superman, there's like Infinite Superman, there's like Superman 2000 or whatever. But there's there's versions of Superman where he's essentially a god. So it's like, are you using that version of Superman? Because then it's like, but then you can also use the new like Ultra Instinct version of Goku. So it's like Goku has new forms now too. But ultimately, I think Goku would mop the floor with Superman, mainly because Goku is like actually a martial artist, whereas like Superman, I'm sure he knows some martial arts because he's also intelligent and whatnot, but he's not literally a martial artist. Like Goku actually has like technique, so that there's fights that he's won not because he was more quote unquote powerful than the guy, but because he was a better fighter. Yep.
The quote from Man of Steel from General Zod when he says to Superman, he's like, "Look, I am a general. I fought in the military, and you are a farm boy." And that's what I think about. There's like, okay, Goku versus Superman. Well, Goku's a martial artist, and Clark is a farm boy. Now, that's not to say farm boy can't fight, but he's a martial artist. Yeah. Right. Like, at least, going into that question, I was like, there might be some bias, but no, there's an explanation to it. That wins. Most people will just say, well, Superman, no matter which one you go with, you can go, let's go New 52. That's when I really picked up DC Comics, was New 52. Yeah. I was aware of, DC Comics prior. I just wasn't big into it. Like I said, I'm a big X-Men and Spider-Man guy.
Yeah, so I've always been a little bit more into Marvel as well.
More so mutants, X-Factor, X-Force, specifically X-Force. Mm-hmm. Like, you throw X-Force at me, like my basement right now with my figures, I have the 90s teams. I have the new X-Factor team. In one case, I just need a Wolfsbane figure.
Yeah.
I have X-Force, but I don't have Richter because that came in a 3-pack. I'm not paying for the 3-pack because it has Cannonball and Domino, which I already have those. So why am I going to buy another one? Yeah. And I need an Excalibur set, which the Excalibur 3-pack has Captain Britain, which I already have, but it has, Shadowcat in the blue outfit and Megan. I just need Phoenix, and I have Nightcrawler. So, but basically, my collection is primarily based off the 90s X-Men, all 90s mutants periods. Mm-hmm. X-Men Gold and Blue, X-Factor, X-Force, Excalibur. I'm waiting for them to drop some Generation X figures because once those hit, I'm back in. I keep telling my wife, she's an enabler. She goes to Target and she'll send me a picture. Hey, do you need this? And most times it's a no, but because she has it in hand and she found it in the wild, it's always a yes.
Yeah.
It's like I have figures in the tote that I don't even have a use for. They're just there because it's like she found it in the wild. But I always think about the ideal of, you know, when you have these super beings in these different you know, lines of, you know, DC, Marvel, anime, Image Comics, things like that, Valiant even, you know, it's like whose top guy would beat who. Honestly, in Marvel, I guess Sentry is their answer to Superman, I guess. But
yeah, he was sort of supposed to be.
Like if you get away from the mutants, I genuinely don't care. As soon as they say, hey, so like when they did the Onslaught story, and then they did Heroes Reborn with all the non-mutants elsewhere, I was like, no, I'm good, I'm out. And then I just stopped collecting because I think I got to that age where I was like, oh, cool, I discovered beer, and that's where my money went instead of comics.
I like knowing all the backstories to the characters and stuff. Like whenever a new Marvel comes out, I always look at like their Wikipedias or whatever and like, okay, what's this guy's deal? And I play a mobile game on my phone called Marvel Strike Force where you like collect different characters and whatnot. And it's a fun game. It's got like over 200 characters now. It's like my little go-to like kill time game. Yeah, I've always been a fan of the comic books and whatnot, but yeah, when it comes to Superman versus Goku, I definitely think Goku would. The other thing I've always liked about the Saiyans specifically is that their power was like directly linked to like their rage. Like the more angry they got, kind of like the Hulk, the more angry they got, the stronger they get. And I'm sure everyone's kind of felt that at some point where you get super mad and you feel like you get that Hulk strength. But like, I really used to feel that when I was younger. Like when I would have wrestling matches and stuff, like it was cool. Like we go out, we shake hands, we compete, whatever. It's like you might beat me, you might not. But like if you pissed me off during our match, like you're dealing with a different guy.
That's how it was in football. It's like eventually I just started playing like backyard football. I would play on the line. I was a scrawny kid playing on the O line. If you beat me, you got my quarterback. That's just not happening again.
Yeah.
And then when it flips, now I'm on defense. I'm blowing through your O line because you got my guy. Now that rage is here. I want yours. And it was just, I feel it.
There's something to be said about learning how to like refine that. Like it's hard to focus your rage to where it's like beneficial and not just like rah, like people say like, oh, I see red. It's like, well, that means you're probably out of control and you're an idiot. But like you can be pissed off, but that can force you to have like laser focus too. And that's like, you know, like soldiers when they're in combat and they say like it seems like time froze down. It's like, well, yeah, it probably almost did seem like time froze down because like with your adrenaline and your endorphins and everything, like your body literally got revved up to like 9,000 RPMs, over 9,000. Sorry, I had to squeeze that in there. But it's literally like your body gets jacked up to like super speed. And like this could just be totally in my mind, but I swear, like when I go to the gym and I put in like a super hard, intense workout, sometimes I feel like my music is like, it feels like I'm hearing it slower in my ear. Like, yeah, like sometimes when I feel like your hormones and your emotions literally can alter your perspective of time. So like if you get super angry and you need to like dodge a punch, it actually just might help you, you know, you get that spike of adrenaline, and, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we're fascinating creatures for sure. And those observations, like I said, it might be in your mind. I don't know, man. It might, you know, we think that, but I feel like, you know, there's probably something to that. So I don't know. But
it's actually, I studied behavioral science in college. That's what
oh, nice.
Yeah, it was because I figured if I was going to be a military officer, I should probably like figure out why people are the way they are. So like I never got a job that I directly used it for, but it was nice just to like, you know, it's nice knowing different personalities and how to, you know, build a team and certain personalities just don't mesh well.
I mean, it's good that like you went in with that insight though, to think like, look, let me look at, this from this perspective, because, a lot of people go into lots of different things just with no pre-planning, no homework. I mean, no thought to it. Just like, I'll figure it out when I get there. Or you'll say after the fact, shit, I need to figure out, what makes these people tick this way. So
yeah,
I think that's awesome.
I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you know who he is. He's pretty popular these days though. But I have a couple of his books on Audible that I've been listening to, and he talks a lot about just having an aim, and I always found that important, especially like early 2019. I got out of the military December 2018. So like basically all of 2019 plus with COVID and everything, that was like a low point in my life. I was like borderline suicidal. Like I didn't know what I was doing with my life. My girlfriend and I broke up. It was just a bad part of my life. But the one goal that was constant throughout that was jujitsu. I wanted, ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to be a black belt in something. And jujitsu was the art I eventually chose. I had been training at it. I was a brown belt. I was like, I'm right there. I'm not going to stop training. And so I just kept training. I kept training. And like, it just gave me something, and I would offer that to anyone who's like feeling like they're in a rut and they don't know what to do with their life. Like Jordan Peterson, he literally says, pick something, pick anything and try to get good at it. Just pick something. Maybe you want to go be a cashier at Walmart. Try to be the best cashier that Walmart's ever freaking had. And then, you do that, you do a good job. And then maybe your manager, tells you, hey, you did a good job. And then it's like that one little, chess piece move can have a huge effect on your life. I think like the Japanese, they have a lot of like knowledge in things they say. There's two concepts that are Japanese concepts that I like kind of try to follow. Is Kaizen, which is basically the idea that you should get a little bit better every day. And then I think I pronounced this right. Ikigai is the other one. And it's basically the idea of like, you try to find something that you're good at, that the world needs you to do, that you can make money from, and like all these things overlap, and you get this thing that's kind of like your purpose in life. And I honestly think for me that's jujitsu. Teaching jujitsu, sharing this art with people in the world. It's like I get joy from it, even though I can't compete at the level I would want to. I still enjoy competing when I can, when my knees don't give out on me all the freaking time. But I love, you just had Tracy on. In the last 6 months, she's won nationals, the Chicago Open, the Austin Open. She's only been training for 6 or 7 months. She's working super hard. And I love to see that. Like when she first started, she had no idea what she was doing, but now she actually does jujitsu. It's amazing. It's like, and your progress can be linked to your effort. Like obviously talent plays a factor. Some people, they just see stuff, they pick it up. It's like, damn it, you guys are so talented. I hate you. But you can also just learn it by just working really hard at it.
I think that hard work aspect is definitely a huge key. I grew up as a natural athlete. I was just good at everything. I was fast. I was strong. I was that kid. I wish I would have had someone to mentor me at that time, to force me to now work at it. Don't just be good.
I agree.
Work at being good. Continue to learn. Because I remember getting to high school football. My thought was, because playing backyard football, I know you give me the ball, I'm going to get to the other end of the field. They're not stopping me. It doesn't work that way in high school football. Yeah, you can't just say, give me the ball. No, there's routes that you have to run, which I couldn't remember. I never read my playbook, stuff like that. I was just like, right. No, I'm good. I'm the most talented person here. And, that may be. I remember that first practice, Coach Winfield says, if you can't run a route, you could be the greatest receiver in the world. You can catch anything we throw at you. But if you cannot run your route, you will never, ever see that field. Yeah. And I was like, oh, shit. Maybe I should learn. And I'm looking at the playbook like, what the fuck are any of these lines? Yeah. Oh, man. I don't want to do this. But it's like, yes, talent is a huge aspect, but if that talent isn't molded and it's like planting a seed. If you don't fertilize it and water it and grow it, it's going to become a weed, and it could end up choking itself out. So
Yeah, and eventually there's gonna be someone who's just as talented as you, but they work way harder than you. And when you're in a sport like wrestling or jiu-jitsu that's one-on-one, or MMA, like MMA is the worst. Like you run into someone who is just as talented as you, but they work way harder than you, and you fight that person, you're in for a bad day. So
you look at John Jones. This dude is super talented and was hardly working. And then I think he lost that fight to Dominic Reyes, but I don't know. I
was actually at that fight.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, when I got out of the Army, I actually worked security for the UFC for like a year. That was pretty cool.
Dude, yeah, definitely got to have you back on. You've got so many different layers and chapters that I need to dig into.
Oh yeah, I feel like I could. Yeah, I barely scratched the surface, my friend.
But yeah, like looking at John Jones, he has all that talent, and he works. But there was one point where he really wasn't, but he was showing up and smashing all these legends. And then I think, as I always say with MMA, especially, the fight game evolves, and if you don't evolve with it, you will get left behind. A good example of evolving with the game is Dustin Poirier. He's been there for a while, and he's been growing with the game. Conor has been there for a while, but Conor grew with he was part of the game changing, but the game has started changing more and moving on.
Conor's been a victim of his own success.
Yeah. So I'm curious as to what's going to happen with John Jones at heavyweight. But I think, again, like you said, there's going to be someone just as talented but works harder, and you got to either rise to the occasion or take that L and accept it.
Yeah, it almost happened when Jones fought DC. DC almost got him, but Jones was just a little bit too fucking good. But DC was Gustafsson, but John said he was partying before the Gustafsson fight, which is crazy to me because that fight was so wild.
Jesus, dude, and that's what I mean. It's like this dude is out partying. He's not even working the hardest, and he's in there. That Gustafsson fight, when I first watched it, I felt like Gustafsson won. I watched it the next time, and I was like,
I thought Gustafsson won.
And the next time I was like, okay, I can see the argument for John. Then I watched it again. I was like, I can see the argument for Gustafsson. I felt like at the very worst, it was a draw. At the very worst.
Yeah.
But it's all in the past now. It ain't being changed. But in Alexander Gustafsson, he just seems like such a nice guy, such a sweet guy. And the game also, again, is moving along and changing. And
dudes just get older. They take damage.
It's like, you're getting older, the damage is being taken, but you're not evolving with the game. It's like, sometimes it's not even that you're not, it's like that you can't. It's like in Jujutsu, I'm sure my fat ass can invert. Comfortably, no, but I'm sure I could do it. But that's part of the whole things are changing. Yeah, I might try to change with it, but my body's like, dog, sit down. Like, why don't you go ahead and work on that half guard game? I was like, okay. But I want to do these other things. No, sit down, fatty. Like, maybe I shouldn't sit down since I'm fat. Maybe I should go running. Good idea.
I feel that. I see all these crazy like flying techniques, and I'm like, I would love to do that, but my knees would explode.
I don't know that I'm coordinated enough to do anything crazy. So I just, like I said, my focus right now is focus on attacking. Just if I can get them to guard, attack from the guard. If I can get on the back, attack from the back. If I'm in top half guard, work my way to, side control, get them out, whatever I got to do to get to a position to attack.
Mm-hmm.
That's Dante's objective moving forward for the next 2 months. Attack, 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 and when you get sick of attacking, attack some more.
Yeah, it's a good strategy in general. If you can be on the offense, your opponent is by definition going to have to be on defense. So
yeah,
if they're defending constantly, they're not attacking you. But
yep.
It's hard though because they get a say too. I posted something earlier today saying how Jiu-Jitsu is like solving a 200-pound Rubik's cube that fights back. It's like it really is.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's just the thing with it is, when we're drilling a move, we're drilling it at very, very low percentage, 10%, some resistance maybe, perfect situation basically. But when it's time to do situationals, it's easy to get discouraged because it's not working. Well, yeah, because they know you're about to do it.
Right.
Like you both just drilled this for 40 minutes. Yeah. It's not going to work because they know you are going for it, which is why you drill it, why you work on it in those situationals to the point where, I was telling my one teammate, he was talking about getting smashed in the training room. And it's like, well, think about that, fact that you all are learning the same thing. But at the end of the day, if you can get it on someone that knows you're doing it, that's the magic right there.
Yeah.
So you're going to go into the competition, on top of your game. So,
yeah. Some of my favorite things to do as a coach now that I've been coaching is I do all of my classes pretty much the same general format. I'll mix it up generally, but basically we'll warm up. We'll do a little bit of standing technique just to kind of finish the warm up. Then we go into whatever the move of the day is. We'll do some positional sparring, and we'll just do some open rounds. And I usually will hop in with the guys / gals, whoever, at the end of the training, and I'll roll with them and whatnot. And I always try to do whatever move I just taught them because, like, one, it because I just taught it to you. And two, if I can do it to you when you know it's coming, then it works. So I do that a lot. I'll be like, all right, here's the move. Show the move, whatever, and then, all right, let's start rolling. We'll do our positionals. I start in that position, and first thing I do, boom. And I always say it to them, like, move of the day.
just that humble reminder.
Yeah. Like, in case y'all think it doesn't work.
Well, James, this has been a great time. I definitely want to have you on again. Sure. I'm always nervous going into any episode. And I've been doing this for long enough, but I shouldn't be nervous. But I'm always nervous, especially when it's a new person, because it's like, oh my God, are we gonna click? Is it gonna be something where I have to like drag info out of them? Am I gonna have to ask questions and like drag it out? Dude, like we conversed as if we were old friends.
Yeah, it flew by. I can't believe that was 2 hours.
Yeah, I looked. I was like, holy shit. Okay. I don't know how much of this is like the only editing I'm really probably gonna do is pauses and and me clearing my throat, stuff like that, because I'm a weirdo about shit like that. But otherwise, this was a fun fucking time, dude. Thank you so much for giving me your time. Thank you.
Thank you for the invite. And yeah, I'll be happy to be back. Just let me know.
Sure thing. Do you have any mentions or shout outs, or where can we find you on social media?
Yeah, I got a few. My social media, BJJ_James M. That's me. I'm the only James McClughen in the world. So if you see James McClughen, that's me. I'm wearing my Jujutsu gi and my black belt. A couple of quick shout outs. Shout out to my professor, Mark Turner. Shout out to BJJ Lab. Shout out to Kataro USA. They're the people who made my awesome belt. All customized and whatnot. They do free stripes for life. Shout out to Justin Gonzalez, my former coach out in El Paso, Grind BJJ. Hope all you guys out there are doing good. Shout out to my homeboy Travis Partika. Not going to get too much into it, but he's a friend of mine that passed away a little over a year ago. So shout out to him. I miss you, brother. I think about you every day. Thanks for having me, man. It's been a great time. Hope you enjoyed it.
Absolutely, man. It was a wonderful conversation here. Like I said, we started conversing as if, we've been old friends and just going back and forth. So thank you for your time. And everyone listening, as always, thank you very much. Thanks for supporting the podcast. Uh, again, I've mentioned the last few episodes. I'm going to mention it again. Been doing this for 2 years, and it's awesome because I didn't think that, we was going to get anyone listening in the beginning, and here we are, got a following. So thank you, everyone who supports the show. I appreciate you and love you all to death. If y'all got any questions, concerns, feel free to reach out to me, bjj.wiki on Instagram or Off the Mats Podcast on Instagram, or any of my other many podcast or Instagram accounts for podcasts, Compton Bear Club, and what's the other one? So You Like Horror. You can find me there. Like, shoot me messages and follow if y'all want to. Please follow. Big shout out, as always, to my good friends Eric and Allie over at Armbar Attic. Go give those kids some love over on Instagram, and go check out the website where they sell some rash guards, t-shirts. They're pretty cool. I think. Oh, I wore the rash guard earlier today to training. Also, big shout out to Nerd Rage Radio, Bobby, Chris, Joe. Love you guys. I'm going to be trying to work on an episode soon with Bobby on So You Like Horror. Probably talk about The Exorcist. So stay tuned for that. And speaking of which, shout out to my other podcast, So You Like Horror. Go check it out on Instagram, So You Like Horror. All the words separated by underscores. And there's a podcast, maybe. I heard there's a rumor about that. We talk about horror movies. Sometimes movies. The next episode that's going to be upcoming, we're going to be talking about the Halloween franchise. And the current episode that's up is actually talking about my guests, their experience with a haunted house. So, check that out, y'all. But otherwise, thank you so much for all the support, everyone. I love you all. You guys keep listening to the show, and we're definitely going to keep doing these things. Thank you, everyone, and bye.
Deep with it. Now let me sing a song.